another episode of Making a Difference in Mental Health. I'm your host, Danielle Young.
And I'm your co-host, Wendy Grier.
And today is our season finale. Wendy, we have made it. I know we've made it through another season 2. I'm just always surprised, how far we've come, and how much we have covered just over the past few months. Again, just as season 1 was very interesting, and we were virtual. Season 1, we were kind of virtual. We're stepping it up.
Right. Season 2, we were live,
right? So you can see us.
No one can see us. So now people are able to see us.
Right. So today we just wanted to go over and kind of recap the entire season and some of the highlights, some things that really hit us, and some things that we would have to consider.
Absolutely.
Things that even for our audience and even for our clients, we would implore them to understand the information and the guests that have come and the information that they've provided. And, let's just talk about some of the highlights and some things that have touched us.
Absolutely. So, of course, we started the year off with our favorite topic, COVID.
Right. Because we're still in it.
Because we're still in it.
Right.
And so we needed to give some respect to that and just let our audience members know, how we're feeling about COVID, how they're feeling about COVID, our clients, and it's still here. And,
right.
How we could continue to kind of live with this virus and still do the things that we need to do. So our guests talked a little bit about that. This experience as a mental health professional working in a school system, in school with this virus, and kids coming off of distance learning, and how all of that played out in the beginning of the school year. And then we went further.
Right.
Let's just talk about social media. Social media is huge, given everything that's going on in the country and how information is filtered and transferred, and given that social media absolutely plays a big role in mental health. We have teenage clients, who struggle with it, can get bullied by it, and so we wanted to give some attention to social media. What do you think about that?
I remember the episode. That episode was with Valerie and her sister, and we kind of touched on things that were very relevant.
Right.
Social media can both be something that is good to our benefit, and then sometimes it can be a challenge. And we were specifically focusing, I believe, on teenagers and the impact that it has on even young girls. But I thought it was a very appropriate conversation to have, how you can connect social media and mental health and emotional health. So,
and as COVID, social media is not going away anywhere anytime soon. So how do we use that form of medium to our benefit? And so I love that conversation with Valerie and her sister, and hope to have them back to have more conversation about social media and how you can use it in a positive way and not weaponize it. So and help people with their mental health. We can get the word out about mental health. So that was good. So
even this is a form of social media, how we're getting the word out through the podcast and through YouTube and through the different mediums that we can to just bring light to certain mental health subjects and topics. And again, even with social media and the connection.
Right. And, our premise is making a difference in mental health.
Making a difference in mental health.
Stigmatizing mental health. It is okay not to be okay, and to get the help that you need. So that's what we've been focusing on. So then we went a different direction. We talked about code switching. That's more of a cultural phenomenon. And we had 2 lovely men on.
This was one of my favorites. This was one of my favorites. Code switching. We had Matt and Mike, who are here with us at ABH in the Frederick, Maryland office. But I enjoyed the conversation because it kind of pulled back the curtain on even how we interact, how we are perceived, people of color, and how even changing our tone or our language, our body language, our, even our vernacular can either benefit us or it can be a challenge for us. But I enjoyed even the questions from Matt. The questions from Matt. Right. I think one of the questions that stuck out for me was like, do you ever turn it off? And I think me, you, and Mike kind of laughed a little bit like, never thought about it.
But probably we don't. We can never turn it off.
Right. But I really enjoyed that conversation. And, I'd love to have another one, maybe even with maybe younger generation.
Yep. See where it is. How they view code switching, if they view it at all. Who knows? Okay, so then tragedy hit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so we'd like to pay our respects again to the Tops Market in Buffalo, where I believe 9 African Americans lost their lives senselessly, and then right around the corner it was the Uvalde shooting where children, 19 children and 2 teachers, sensibly lost their lives to gun violence. And so I think that sparked our conversation around wanting to talk about race. And, our returning guest, Marty, came on and talked about race through the eyes of a white male clinician and what his caseload looks like here at ABH and how he's able to connect with his female clients. And I think he shared a lot of gems in that discussion in terms of what you need to do, be an ally, do your research, get educated, etc. And then we also jumped into just you and I talking again, just because of all the things that happened, to just, pay homage to our colleagues. Like, a lot of people aren't okay, and it's okay that we're not okay. And what can we do to be okay?
And I remember, when you plan a podcast, you usually plan out, well, this is the topic, this is what we're going to discuss. And I remember just taking a pause, like, we talked about it. We're saying, no, everything that has happened from, talking about race and the impact of what was happening at the time, and then, the continued violence, the continued social injustices, the shootings. It's like, you know what, let's take a pause from the everyday routine to show our empathy, and to show our sympathy.
Absolutely.
And, we provide a service as clinicians, as social workers, as counselors, as therapists, as just prescribers, those who service the community to help get back onto the path of functionality from your mental health to your emotional health. But we also need to have a check-in. And like you said, it's okay not to be okay.
Right. And we as mental health professionals take in a lot of information, and normally negative information on a daily basis. And so it's really crucial for us to have outlets and be able to talk about our feelings and our struggles and our concerns, so that we're taking care of ourselves and that we're doing the best that we can for our clients. So that was a necessary pause.
Yeah. And I also want to just shout out those of our colleagues who actually were able to email us back and say, hey, I liked that episode. I listened to the episode. Or those who have come to us in person and said, I really appreciate having this time and the space to listen, to also be able to say, I'm not the only one that's feeling this way.
Absolutely.
We carry a caseload of however many, tens of persons on our caseload. And at the same time, too, we're one person. But we all experience, something very similar when it comes to sometimes being overwhelmed or sometimes being burned out. And we just need that time to
It's also kind of hard to tell your loved ones if they're not in the field. They don't understand your spouse or your children. They just want to see you and talk to you about certain things. But I think I enjoyed you and I kind of just free flowing and talking about it and just acknowledging that it's real. It's real in this profession. You can get secondary trauma. You can be affected by what happens in the world and in your family and around you, and that's okay too. I just think we need the spaces to be able to discuss it and let it go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then we moved on to something fun that I enjoy, and hopefully in season 3 we'll be able to do more of it by highlighting our colleagues. So we highlighted Chelsea Riff. She talked about her parenting program.
Yes,
she's getting a certificate in. And she shared really nice personal story about her journey to mental health in terms of being a single parent.
Yes.
And so we'd love to have her back, because I'm sure, our audience, there's a lot of young women who have ventured on that path as well. So we'd like to give some space to talk about single motherhood.
And I'm sure with the program that she participates in, that's a really good resource, for us as clinicians and even our clients. So I really enjoyed Chelsea.
She was fun. And then we had Francisco join us too, just to talk about, just again, men in, I think it was Men Mental Health Month that he came on for us. That was back in June, and just giving his, highlighting his journey into mental health and, what he believes and anything takeaways that you had from him.
Well, the one thing I can say is that I felt like I was listening to a motivational speaker.
Absolutely. He was motivated.
I felt like,
him at one
right, I felt like I was listening to a motivational speaker, and I really even appreciate what he was saying was, his path wasn't necessarily like the roughest path, but it was also about just kind of self-correcting and having the mentor to kind of say, hey, listen, I see where you want to go. Let me help you.
Right.
Let me push you a little bit forward, even from a male's perspective. So again, I appreciated his approach to empowering and encouraging our audience. I really felt like I was sitting at a seminar to say, you can do it.
I know, right?
I really felt that like that.
I love the way he, I agree with you, how he, invaluable lessons from a mentor and how a mentor can be a very valuable person in your life. So we super enjoyed having Francisco on as a guest, highlighting some of our great staff here at ABH, very skilled clinicians. So we thank Chelsea and we thank Francisco for that.
Yes. And
so then we moved into interviewing our prescriber here at our Greenbelt site, and that would be Kyle O'Connor, nurse practitioner. And he talked about trauma because we've been in, a summer of trauma. Unfortunately, everybody was praying that we'd have a break, but between the gun violence and now with Roe being overturned, trauma just never seems to go.
The one thing about Kyle that I appreciate, I appreciate everyone.
Absolutely.
And I find Kyle to be so compassionate, kind, but also gentle, even with the traumas that all of our clients may face. And remember, during that time, we were still talking about the different shootings that happened in Buffalo and then Uvalde and then
Sandy Hook, because he's from
he gave that personal story about Sandy Hook. And I think at the time too, there's a lot of political stuff that's going on too, which we were gearing up to hear a little bit more about Roe v. Wade, which we'll get to in a minute. But the one thing I really want to highlight about our prescriber here at Greenbelt is that I find he approaches issues and challenges in a gentle way.
Exactly.
And I can appreciate that. Very empathetic. The active listening and the reflective responses that we always learn about in college. Like I find that he really, really does that. But also as much as he does that, he's also impactful in what he gives back. So.
And I just
wanted to shout out Kyle.
Kyle, absolutely. Just recognize too, he's the type of practitioner that truly looks at the client and its goal. And it's not one to rush to medicate.
Yes. Yeah.
And if medication is necessary, he really takes his time in explaining to clients and so that they understand what it all means. So I really appreciate that.
And then he works well with us as well. Of course, it's a team. Yeah, it's a team. So, kudos to Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. So then we really got into, once Roe was officially overturned, we had inklings earlier on in the late spring, but then now that it was officially overturned, you and I decided to spend the month of July just having various people on to just discuss what it means and what the impact of this decision, Supreme Court decision, will mean for women. And it's a tough subject. I remember you were like, I don't even want to talk about this. I don't want. That's a very private and personal decision. What you do with your body, and I won't even just say to have an abortion, but period, what you do with your body. in terms of maternal health and physical health and all of that. And, me, I'm, militant. I want to talk about it because kids are involved in this conversation, and kids are, again, the ones that are going to suffer. And so I think you and I both brought our career perspectives to this discussion as well, and try to stay in line with the facts.
Right.
Based on what we experienced in our previous jobs before we came to ABH. And so we had on Valerie, our returning guest, Valerie, who came on and talked about, working in a clinic. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to go back to what you were saying, and I want to say I appreciate you too, Wendy, because offline I said, I'm really not comfortable talking about this because I do think that these are private issues. Whatever I do with my body is my business. But I appreciate that you said, there are other people that need to hear you say that, because there are other people who probably feel the same way you do. And for me, it's more so of a generational thing. Like I'm on the cusp. I understand my parents and, those who are, let's just say 55 up, I understand that. And I'm kind of leaning
in that category.
No, but listen, you're so far from it. You're so far from it. She's so far from it. But so the ones that I know, put it that way. Issues are private. And in certain things, I'm so leaning to, I'm very staunch. But when it comes to the privacy of what I do with my body or what you do with your body, none of our business. It's none of the government's business. It's just between me and my doctor and whomever I choose to have involved or have access to that information. But it was the urging to say, no, say that online, say that for people who also feel the same way you do, because you don't want to alienate anyone. But I can also, again, when I hear from your perspective and from those who came on, who are the guests who were leaning more towards, no, we got to be out, we got to be vocal. I learned so much. It's not that I'm completely uneducated, but I learned so much about the tenacity, the passion, yes, let's get our voice out. And it changed my view. It changed some of my view. It did.
And, I'm glad, but it wasn't my purpose. My purpose was, me, I'm going to give you the facts. And when I give you the facts, then, of course, it's up to you to make your own personal decision. But I think the facts are missing in this conversation. And it's quick to, feel like abortion is, the worst thing that a human being can do. But it's not black and white.
Right.
Lots of things that impact why a woman may need it, how a woman has to get it, and there's this whole cadre of physical, medical issues, emotional issues.
And what Valerie said, she said, if you could only be in the room. She worked at the clinic. She told us about the decisions that women and their families had to make, and they weren't just this, oh yeah, let's do it, or oh yeah, let's forget about it. These are really tough choices that also were connected to medical challenges and mortality challenges, either of a woman or a child. So it's not black and white, like you say. There's such a spectrum.
Yes. I mean, this has just very overreaching consequences. And I spoke from the space of having to do those interviews with the 10-year-olds in the world who have been raped and sexually abused by their caretakers and became pregnant, and having to have those conversations and seeing those faces, and it's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching. So I acknowledge my passion, especially with that. But in the end, as we said, take the facts, get the facts, do your own research, read about how, different states are even going to take it even further to try to regulate if you want to have a baby or not, in terms of contraceptive or IVF treatments or, any of these things. So I just truly believe, we are under attack, and our autonomy is being taken away from us, and we're being treated as though we can't make decisions about our own body. And I love what you always bring up.
I'm going to say it again. Find the law that tells me about a male's reproductive system, that regulates it, that has control over it. Once you find it to me, make a comment down below. I'll research it. I'll read it. I'll research it, and might even bring it up in our next season.
Right.
But
and I liked we had Lady and Kyla on. Those were our last guests. I don't think that episode aired yet, but our viewers will see it. But they did. I like what you said. Like, come to the table and have a conversation. I'm always willing to have a conversation with anyone about anything that's controversial. Just come with the facts. Don't come with information that you haven't that you don't know about. That's infuriating. But just come with the facts. And I think all the guests we had Valerie, our returning guest. Marty came on and talked about it from a male perspective as a male clinician. And I appreciate all those conversations, because I hope someone who's listening gives them hope. Like, maybe the battle isn't over, or maybe like you said, I turned the corner on it because there's things I didn't know. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, here is the real deal information. Just like I told you, we talked about Black and brown kids.
And we both know that prior to being a therapist, being in child welfare and in the court system, and adoptions and understanding and seeing cases that come across my table every couple of months. They're up for it, or they don't get adopted, or one foster kid is moved from another home, and most times they are Black or brown children.
Overrepresentation.
Exactly. And they get older and older and older until they either age out. And the reality is, when you have budget constraints, social programs are the first to go. And so all these talks of, we're going to get programs for women when they're pregnant, and we're going to, force a 10-year-old to carry the baby to term, and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just not going to happen, because people aren't investing in that. This is just, to me, Wendy speaking, a control power play kind of decision. Right. Nobody's well-being is really in the forefront when these decisions are being made. Right, and it almost seems,
it's cruel to me.
It almost seems like, there's so much emphasis on the care of a child in utero, but when a child gets here, that's
you and I both saw it after the child is here. Everybody
what programs?
What programs are there?
Right.
Someone tell me, who's running to take this child into their home. And so I just think, again, we stick to the facts. We stick to the facts. So I know that in season 3, we'll probably be talking about grow again.
Right.
Because I just think it's just that impactful, like COVID was, or is still.
That's
and
right.
You're
absolutely right.
From it.
You're absolutely right.
So I think we'll do a check-in about that too. About how are people coping, living with this virus, and then we're hearing another virus creeping up. So it's just, we're in some really challenging times that create stress and anxiety for all of us. And so we always want to be able to talk about that. We always want to give support, guidance, education, tips, things like that.
And I think that that's why we're here. That's why we've been given the opportunity to do this podcast about making a difference in mental health, and the conversations that we want to have with you, and the conversations that we have with our colleagues. And
Absolutely.
I want to just give a shout out to our CEO, Vera Curdian, for just allowing us, Dr. Vera Curdian, for just allowing us to continue on with having these conversations. And I just want to highlight again, originally we thought it was going to go one way, but midway through the season, and it seems like you said it's going to be spilling over, we're going to check in on this Roe v. Wade phenomenon that's happening. And
it's so impactful. It's a whole class of people.
And you never know, we may have repeat guests to come back. We seem to have a few favorites.
Yes, we do.
But we may have
that like to drop by and have a conversation.
And we just appreciate their knowledge. There's so much more to come for season 3. I do know that in the meantime and in the interim, we may have 1 or 2 episodes to drop just
Absolutely.
for your consumption. And I think for Janet Norris, we have a part 2 on trauma. So if you're interested in watching that, that will come sometime within the summer. Yeah, sometime within the summer, because we don't want to leave you completely high and dry.
Absolutely.
Right,
Just
right,
a little taste.
right. Just a little taste of what's coming for season 3.
So this will be Danielle and I's little hiatus.
Yeah.
As we plan for our next season.
Mhm.
And so we just, want to say thank you. Thank you to those who listen to us weekly,
Mhm.
daily, whenever you have a chance. We appreciate it. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate people reaching out and, telling us how they appreciate this podcast and reaching out with ideas and things like that. So we always extend a warm hand to anybody that wants to come onto the podcast and talk about anything that's mental health.
Right.
How do we improve our practice? How do we
Absolutely.
get the word out that mental health, it's okay, get it, be involved in it.
Right.
It's needed because we have so many challenges to face in your life and in this world. So.
If you have any thoughts, any ideas, questions, or comments, you can always comment down below. This is season 2. It's a wrap. My name is Danielle Young, my co-host.
Wendy Grier.
This is Making a Difference in Mental Health. We're always striving to make a difference in mental health. We will see you next season.